JJ Piccollo as he joins us every couple weeks here on the show. Good morning, JJ. Appreciate you, as always, calling in. I wanted to start with the offense. Obviously, that's what everybody is talking about right now, and it's very early in the season. How do you view what you're seeing from your offense right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly been a little bit of a struggle, but I think it's magnified when we're not getting it done with guys in scoring position. But, this is a position that all teams are in at different points of the season. It's just a little bit more magnified when it's the beginning of the season and you're not winning the games. Sometimes you get away with it where you're not really producing all that well with runners in scoring position, but you win the game and it sort of gets overlooked. But in this case, in this little stretch here, we're not getting it done when we have opportunity to score. So it's magnified because of the losses. So, but it's, as you guys know, we've talked about this before, this kind of comes and goes, and it's one of the most unpredictable things in all of sport, to be very candid. And last year we had a similar start. In the second half of the year, we were one of the best three offenses with runners in scoring position with the same guys. So it's kind of one of those things you just got to roll with the punches and be rational in your thoughts, and then just kind of dig deeper and just try to figure out where are we losing at bats? Is it certain counts? Are we missing certain pitches? And every player is a little bit different. There's not one answer for the entire team.
I think for fans, what has been surprising is like two of the players that, if you guys are going to get to where you want to get to, of course, Salvador Perez and Vinny Pasquantino are going to be part of that and have been a part of it in the past. And those are two guys that in particular right now just been struggling. Is there any thought of changing anything with the lineup, or is it status quo in terms of those two guys?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think in a weird kind of way, it's a good thing that it's those two, because they're the ones that historically have done it. So you really don't get overly concerned with those two guys. They're just going through it at the same time. But, I know that that's a thought. We talk about lineups every day, but the truth of the matter is you want a deep lineup so you can move guys in and out. And there are certain things in lineup construction that matter. When you have guys that are, I like to call them burners, you like to kind of group those guys together. Then you get into the guys that aren't the burners. You kind of want to group them together. Otherwise, it slows other people down when they're on base. Then, of course, you got the handedness. It's so easy to strategize against a lineup that has a lot of left-handed hitters. So you try to split up the left-handed hitters. So it's really a lot of different things that go into lineup construction, and it's an easy thing to just say, hey, put somebody in this spot and somebody in that spot. But it creates other holes, and that's something that we constantly are discussing with the pros and cons of how you construct a lineup. And again, there's no one right answer, So there comes a point in the year where maybe you try something different. Quite honestly, we don't feel like we're there right now. That's panic. That's not logic. That's panic. So we're going to stay calm. These guys are going to work themselves out of it. And, with a good road trip here, then you feel a lot better and you get going. So that's just the nature of our sport.
I think Jake Eisenberg mentioned it to us last week, and I've seen a couple of other articles written about it, that statistically it's not the same offensive struggles as the team struggled last year in some of the, more advanced stats. Are you guys seeing some of that internally?
Oh yeah, no, there's no doubt. I mean, the one thing we've always actually fared pretty well in is hard hit rates, but our chase rates are in the top 10 in baseball. That's not been the case for us in the past. Ironically, our strikeouts are up, and that's something we kind of looked at last fall. Like, we take a lot of pride in putting the ball in play, but there are times where strikeouts are okay, and that's when there's nobody on base and you want to stay aggressive. But when you have guys on base and in scoring position, that's where you want the strikeout rates to be low. So our strikeout rates right now are high, but our chase, our swing and miss, our in zone swing and miss, all of those things that are long-term predictors are actually pretty good right now, and even better than we've had in the last several years. So there are some things that we can point to kind of keep the guys positive. But they know, just like we do, in the end, it's about scoring more runs than the other team. So you can look at all these different numbers and try to make yourself feel good. Bottom line is score one more run than the other team, and then we're all happy. And then it doesn't matter what those rates are. But, just thinking long term, those rates are what we look at usually are good indicators of where the offense can go and why your expected numbers can be higher. And right now we rest in a pretty good spot with a lot of those indicators.
What about a guy like Jack Caglione? We were looking up his chase rate is better than you would expect for a guy who's still not putting in play. Why no power, I guess, is the question. Because there's some extra base hits, but an on base is okay, but the power has not been there.
Yeah, it's kind of like that catch-22. So I'll just relate it to like a pitcher. You get pitchers that can throw really hard, but they don't throw strikes. So what do? They back off, and everybody goes, "Where's the velocity?" Well, he's throwing strikes. But right now, Jack is kind of backed off a little bit to try to take quality at bats, which we think is the right thing to do. If you're going to be a major league hitter, you can't be all or nothing all the time. You got to be able to be versatile in what you do. So the good sign right now is Jack is actually making much better swing decisions. He hasn't seen the power that we all know is there. But again, in time, if he's making good swing decisions, and also part of making good swing decisions, we always think about it as if it's don't chase, but sometimes it's pull the trigger on pitches you need to hit. And if there's anything right now in Jack's numbers, he's missed some fastballs that he can do some damage with, but in the end, he's a young player. He's going to work through those things. We certainly would take the lower chase rates because if you're locked in on getting good pitches to hit and you're pulling the trigger, we know his power is going to play. But if he's chasing out of the zone, that's where you're playing right into the pitcher's hands, and you're not going to hit for average or get on base or have the power. So right now, even though the numbers aren't exactly where we want him to be, we do think he's showing progress and maturing as a hitter.
We're talking to JJ Piccollo here on 96.5 The Fan. We asked you, I think in the past, even probably last year, about Salvador Perez. And at one point in time, people thought that, all right, maybe H is catching up. That's not the conversation here, but just in terms of how you guys utilize him moving forward. I think he's on pace to catch 110 games. He's played every day. Is that a pace that you guys are wanting to keep up? Is that just the way the schedule is worked out? How do you see in terms of his playing time moving forward?
Yeah, well, he's going to be in the lineup a large majority of the time. I'm not going to say he's going to play 162 games, but he's going to be in the lineup quite often. Even though we just went through 12 straight, we also had a rain out in there, so even that broke up to 12 straight. We just haven't had the schedule where we needed to split the time. But in the end, he's not going to catch 140 games. That's not the pace he's getting. The pace he may be on, but that's not what it's going to end up being. Last year he caught somewhere between 80 and 90. I forget exactly what it was. And he was a very productive hitter. And we know that, catching takes a lot out of guys. And when we see offensive production go down, we can relate it to Salvi with the amount that he's catching. So that's a work in progress. As we've said all along, we think it's going to be more of a split time between Salvi and Carter, and in the end, it's going to be total number of games caught, not necessarily how they got there. It's total number of games caught. But again, we think of Salvi, he's a really important piece to our offense, and getting him the right amount of DH days or time off is important to his offense, because I think over the last couple of years, that's proven to be the case as we cut his games back catching, but we definitely need him in the lineup. There's no doubt. And with Salvi, we've seen this for 15 years. He goes through these stretches where he's struggling, and then next thing you know, he gets going. That's just Salvi, and he's the first one to admit it, which is the beauty of Salvi. He never panics. He knows who he is and how he is, and he knows he's going to chase. And at times he's not, and when he's not, he's going to put up numbers. That's how he's been really the last 10 years of his career as he's come into his own as an offensive player.
Definitely want to talk about an underrated starter here in just a minute. But tonight, Cole Reagan's on the mound. Had to leave his start early the last time after he took that liner. I guess first off, how is his hand? But also, out of what you've been able to see out of Cole Reagan so far, how good do you think he still can be this year?
Well, the real shame of last week was he had, by his own admission or his own, I'll say, evaluation, his best stuff that he's had in 2 years. He said, "This is the best I've felt." And we were at a point there where we were just getting our bullpen back on track, and he gets knocked out in the first inning with the batted ball, and now we got to, use the entire pen and make some moves after the game. So it was really unfortunate for us because we were in a position with even just those first 7-8 pitches he threw. It's like, okay, we're in a good spot today. We got a chance to win the series. And not only do we not win the series, but we lose Cole for the game. And luckily, it wasn't serious at all. It hit him in probably the best spot it could possibly hit a pitcher. It hit him in the inside of his thumb, on that fatty part of your thumb. It just went numb on him. It just went numb, and he couldn't feel the ball, and he had to come out of the game. And but he's fine. He took his normal day after start off. He doesn't do any throwing. Tuesday, he felt great. Wednesday, he threw his bullpen. And then he moved on into getting ready for the start. I had my days off, but his third day, he threw the bullpen, and he was fine, and he's ready to go.
When you look at the underrated part, we were talking about Michael Wacha on the show yesterday. his whole entire career could probably be summed up that way, as in an underappreciated starter in Major League Baseball. Feels like he's been getting an extra dose of it this year, I guess.
Well, he's been outstanding. I mean, it's really neat to see guys as they get into this. I'll say like the latter part of their career, how they know what they need to do to prepare and how well they prepare and go out and do what the job calls for. That start he made in Cleveland was much needed. Like our bullpen was decimated, and he goes out and gives us 7 innings, and then next start he gives us 8. I mean, it's really fun to watch. We're fortunate to have him. He's the ultimate pro. He knows exactly what needs to get done every day. He's willing to, I'll say, suck it up for the team when you need him to. And it's really a testament to his preparation and how he takes care of himself in between starts that allows him to do that. But it's pretty neat to watch. Having been in this game for a long time, you don't come across too many guys that are able to do those things.
You've mentioned the bullpen a couple of times, when related to Reagan's or needing the starting rotation to give you some innings because of where the bullpen's at. We all already know that early in the season, Carlos ended up on the IL. Where are you at with the bullpen right now and some of the results that you're seeing from the back end in particular?
Yeah, well, Urseg's been outstanding. I mean, he's done exactly what we've asked him to do. A couple back-to-backs, getting some saves. That's great. We always felt like that's going to be a role for him down the road. But like most great closers, at one point they were setup guys and they become closers. Strom's had a hiccup, but more or less has done his job, especially against left-handed hitters. And I think other guys have filled in really well. Some guys we weren't necessarily counting on. But at the same time, our walks are up a little bit in the bullpen. We've got to get the walks down. We can't be giving up free bases, late in the game. But we just haven't quite found our rhythm just yet, I would say, in the bullpen. I think some of that's due to Carlos's, really injury and lack of effectiveness. But we know Carlos is going to figure that out. Another guy that's got a long history of being successful. And we're looking forward to when we get him back and he's right. Because that's really going to settle things down. And with Urseg and Strom and Schreiber and Mears, we've got the makings of a really good bullpen. It projects well. But right now we're going through it. It's one of those times you go through these things and they're frustrating. But you just got to take it day by day and get those guys the rest and the work that they do need. And then things tend to fall in place if you're talented enough, which we believe we are.
Where is Carlos at right now, just in terms of his rehab or at least recovery from the injury?
Yeah, his arm's doing well. He's kept his arm moving. Unfortunately, he got a little illness that sidelined him for a couple of days, but he's back up throwing. We're hoping to get him out to Omaha to get him on a rehab assignment. I'd love to say, sometime in the next 5 days. I think it depends on how he recovers from that illness. But he was moving in that direction, and he was on schedule to head out to Omaha this week. So hopefully we can get him back on track and get him the outings he needs and get the command where it needs to be and the velocity where it needs to be and get him back in that role.
JJ Piccollo, Royals General Manager, President of Baseball Ops, joins us every couple weeks here on the show. Appreciate it, and enjoy Detroit.
All right, guys. Thank you.